Rest teaches us our value.
Yes.
So it taught me my value and it taught me my worth. And I was just like, if I want to do something, I gotta do it.
Welcome to your Ref for Today channel. I am your host, Tonisha, and I am super excited about this conversation that we're going to have coming up today because I have a lovely guest with me, Miss Ebony Molock, and she is just a beautiful soul. Like, I only bring beautiful souls on this show, right? And I met Ebony December 2020, and she was my yoga instructor, but she's so much more than that. Obviously, the women that I have on the show, they are all of the things, and that's why we bring them on here. And so that's going to be a very brief introduction because I'm going to talk about how we know each other later. But right now, I want to introduce you guys to Miss Ebony Molock. Tell the people about yourself and welcome to Ref for Today.
I'm Ebony. I've been teaching yoga. It's about to be almost 7 years I've been teaching yoga. I love the practice of yoga. I think it's so healing and it can be helpful to anybody who's going through something, whether it's mentally, spiritually, physically. I'm all about the mental and spiritual aspect of it. And it changed my life because I've had anxiety. I was diagnosed with anxiety at 9 years old, and I believe depression around like 10 or 12, somewhere around that. And people don't really talk a lot about anxiety or depression, especially in our community. So
and that's very helpful that you say that as well, because that's how I came to you, right? In anxiety and all of these feelings that I had in my body.
Right.
So we're going to talk about that. So you do yoga. Do you do anything else you want to share? Anything else about yourself?
I am a certified yoga nidra teacher.
Okay, what does that mean?
What yoga nidra is, it's basically a guided meditation to help people sleep and to rest. So I think you've done it before where your mind is completely awake, but we guide your body to be completely asleep.
Yes.
And that healing tool I didn't learn or discover until 2020, I think when we were all on lockdown. And I was like, oh, wow, like this is such a powerful tool. Like I was practicing it for a while before 2020 hit because I was like, wow, this is something that really can help people with their anxiety and depression. So yoga nidra certified, meditation certified, breath work, almost close to breath work certified almost. But I love aromatherapy. During my day job, I also work for a flavor and fragrance company.
Oh, nice.
So I think I started getting into aromas and flavors and things like that much later. So mainly that was my whole thing, was just aromas and how aromatherapy can help heal people as well.
Yes.
So all those things became to tie together, and that's pretty much how I became who I was.
Right. And so you are in transition, or you're going through your transition. So I met Ebony in December of 2021. I had been living in Georgia for a year, and I had stumbled upon the yoga place that she was working at, and immediately for me I was like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be. Like, she's got this warm, bubbly personality, but also very, very knowledgeable, very into her craft, very studied and practiced, and not even for me looking for the practice of yoga, right? I was looking for a time. I got 3 kids, get away from my kids. I need somewhere to come in, right? But the encounter I feel like I had with your practice was, for me, life-changing at the time, because there was so much energy that I feel like I had inside myself that I didn't know how to articulate or get out. And so I feel like you helped me to get in touch with that. And so, like, I'd be in this class sobbing, okay?
She would cry every day. That's a good thing.
No, exactly. That wasn't a shame. You know what I'm saying? And she didn't make me feel no kind of way about it. She just, rubbed my shoulders or whatever the, release it was that I needed to have at the time. And so for me, it was more, I didn't realize, because initially I approached it like, oh, I need to go stretch. I'm going to get away from my kids. You know what I'm saying? But then it became something more, because I'm like, okay, I can get in tune with myself in a way that I would not have otherwise. And so those are my Mondays and Tuesday nights, right? Like, whatever y'all got to eat, okay? If it's just some tacos, that's what you go, because I got to leave at 6:30 because I got to get to yoga, okay? So I just wanted to, number one, thank you for that. Like, you
absolutely
really put a hankering on, or help me get a hold on that, because the feelings of anxiety, the feelings of depression, those things, the transitions of moving to a new state, having to reacclimate yourself, all of the things, the children, all of those things. And so talk to me a little bit about your journey to this point, right? You talked about having, you as a child.
That didn't start until after I graduated high school and then eventually dropped out of college. So I'm a college dropout, if anybody doesn't know. But I know, like, for me, just dealing with those waves of anxiety and depression, especially when you're growing up in different, stages in your life, like, especially when you're being a teenager or preteen, you're just like, what is going on? I don't know what to do with my body. So once that started, I think sometime around senior year of high school, I got to, okay, I already knew the first foundation was me getting to know myself and getting to know God on a different level. I think once I started having that relationship with God, like really being in touch with God and understanding what God was for me in my life, that's when I began to really love myself in a different way.
Okay. So what was that awakening or that understanding of who God was to you?
For me, it was more so, I know when we have at school, we have like this little Christian club. Most other schools don't have it, but they had it at ours. And I was like, okay, I knew I needed something at that point because I was desperate. Like, therapy was working a little bit, but I'm like, I knew I needed something a little bit different than the therapy I was going to. So, the Christian club that I went to at my school, they would have it every morning, doing our daily prayer. And then I intentionally set that. And I think for me, that close relationship with God was knowing I can turn to somebody when I'm in a desperate place. And I think when I started getting in a very desperate situation, a very sad place, I was like, okay, there's something higher than me that I can call on to. So I think that close relationship was, I knew, like, I believed in God all my life, like we were praying, but I didn't know what it meant to actually understand and have a close relationship with him until, it was a day I was just like really getting on my knees. Like,
he'll get you to that place now.
Yeah, he'll get you to that place, even at like
right.
18, 19 years old. I'm like, yeah. So when I really started getting into that, I understood like I actually what it meant to really have a close bond with God besides praying. Sometimes I really know, like, even in moments where I don't pray, I know he hears my thoughts.
For sure.
He hears my heart. He hears like what I'm trying to do. And I think he can make it happen in ways that I can't really necessarily imagine. Because all I wanted to do was just like, okay, God, like, I just want this anxiety and depression to go away. But the thing was, like, anxiety never really goes away, but you know how to handle it better, especially in certain situations. So I thank God for that every day. Like, for me, I was like, I don't think I would have been here had I not just tried, like, trying that, people say, like, try Jesus, girl. Like, if I didn't really try God and really try Jesus in that way, I think I would have not been here. Yeah.
That is so encouraging to hear right now, because we talk about God, right? We don't never name it, right? For what it is or for who God is in the person of Jesus Christ, number one. But what the impact of that relationship can really be. So tell me then how that led you to, what were your next steps? How was that informed by God?
So I went to church. I actually went to a metaphysical church called Hillside. Their pastor recently passed away. I think like after COVID, she passed away. But I learned God. It was crazy because I learned God in a metaphysical perspective, like how he is spiritually in many ways. Because in that church, they talked about, how God is in Christianity and how he may be in Catholicism, or how he may be in Buddhism, or how he may be in like spirituality as a whole. And I said, okay, wow, it opened the door for me to understand, okay, Christianity is one thing, but God is so infinite in other aspects of other people's lives. So that really opened me up to a whole nother door of learning different things. So I started learning people's cultures and backgrounds and finding God in them and seeing it through me and understanding, okay, God is in like everybody. It didn't matter like what they looked like, what color they were. And it's just like, wow. So once I tried that in a different way, that's when, my thought process of God became even more powerful and more of a bigger understanding.
So how do I commune with God as I interact with people who may believe what I believe, may not believe what I believe, but how do we get to the journey of healing together?
Right, exactly. So that was just my whole process, whether it was friends I was getting to know, business partners, people I was working with. So that opened my whole mindset to something different. Gradually over time, I entered college. I thought, that was just going to be my whole life plan. Like college, you get a job, you good, you just do the steps, but then God has other plans, right? So, I was experiencing, again, other levels of stress from school because I was just like, okay. And then I think I got to the part where I realized I was like, okay, school just really ain't for me. This is just not.
And that's absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine.
Right.
Because there are different paths.
Right.
And life teaches you that.
Exactly. So I just realized for me, I was like, well, this kind of isn't really for me. This isn't something that I really enjoy. And then I ended up being introduced to yoga in college because they offered yoga classes. And I said, well, I've heard of yoga. So I tried it. There was a guy I was messing around with, had a crush on. He was like, well, I'll try it too. I'm like, okay, well, if you going, I'm going too, right? So it was the hardest thing.
Nice.
Yeah. But I remember because I was talking to somebody previously. I was like, yeah, I did it because a guy did. And I'm like, please don't do that. But I did that because
sometimes you need a little push and look at where we are.
Yeah, look where we are now. But I was sitting there, I was like, okay, I'm going to actually take this class. So I took the class. He didn't look like he was struggling. I was, but I'm competitive like my mom. I'm just like, like this. I can't be looking a fool in class. I gotta really keep going. So I kept going during that time, and I loved it. Like I loved how it changed my mindset, my body. Those were just the basics. Then my mom started realizing, oh, you really love yoga. So she took me to meditation classes. She and I took workshops together sometimes just to help support me in my journey. And then I told her, I said, I think I don't want to do this no more. I think I want to be a yoga teacher. And at first she was shocked. She's like, what? Like, my dad was shocked too, but then he was like, well, I can see this being more so her passion than anything. I was almost finished with school, but then I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I dropped out. I ended up getting my certification at Kripalu Center for Yoga and Health. I went on ahead. I booked a retreat / yoga teacher training at that time. My mom paid for my ticket and everything because at the time I was broke.
Shout out to the mamas.
Shout out to the mamas, right? Because at the time I had no money. So she was helping me out and she was just like, all right, like you just got to do it. And the training was intense. Certain things that you had to face within yourself. Like I remember they have the 8 limbs of yoga and they said, okay, well, these are the 8 limbs of yoga. We're going to have you all pick something out of a box and then pull that actual name out. And I remember non-attachment was my thing because with my anxiety, I was attached to like everything. I was holding on to stuff. And it was the same thing. Like I just had a feeling where I cannot let go of anything, but it really peeled a lot of layers and helped me drop the weight of things that I've been holding on to and my anxiety and depression, the things I've been holding on to. I was still working on, learning to let go and learning to surrender. But I think at that point when I was doing that, because again, we were there for like 30 days, I think, it felt like years. When you're
challenging yourself, right? Like, let's work on this, let's work on that.
Exactly.
And it's just like you're facing yourself in a more hyper kind of way. I can't even imagine.
So it was like a yoga school. So it's like it used to be an ashram. And I think they turned it into a yoga school. And then ever since then, it's just, I was spending the night there. I was thinking I lived there at the point because at that time I was there. Like I was in Massachusetts. I couldn't fly back and forth from like Atlanta to Massachusetts. I had to stay in Massachusetts for 30 days. So it was just a magical experience. You were surrounded by people that were like-minded or deeper in their spirituality and things like that. So, just being away from social media, of course, you take pictures and post things when you want to, but just not communicating with people in Atlanta, not, getting distracted by anything. I think that was the biggest thing for me, but it was wonderful. And I think at that time, that was the first time I actually heard God, like actually heard him because it was so quiet.
Exactly.
Yeah, no distractions.
That's kind of the key.
Yeah.
You got to get all those voices out of the head. And because that's what anxiety is, right? It's that constant chatter telling you all the negative things about yourself, right?
Exactly.
All the things that just aren't true or trying to manipulate the truth or, you know what I'm saying? And so I could imagine that encounter happened when you don't have all of those other things vying for your attention. So you got to that process, right? You completed that and you were like, okay, I'm full in on this thing. And then you just took off.
I took off for a little bit. What happened? I started off doing free yoga with friends and family.
Right.
Gradually, I told, because I was at a studio in Fayetteville. I think they closed after COVID, but it was a Black-owned studio at the time. And she was just like, hey, like, I heard you got your yoga teacher training. I said, yeah, I did. So she had me actually teaching her class on the spot.
Oh, wow.
So it was supposed to be a hot yin yoga class, and I had no idea why the temperature was up. I was like, this is weird.
Love hot yoga, by the way. Love hot yoga.
Yeah, so I love hot yoga too. But I was like, okay, this is weird, but it was more of a hot yin. I didn't understand what yin was at the time, but I taught like a hot hatha class.
Okay.
And she watched me. That was actually my audition for me to be an instructor there. So I was an instructor there. And then gradually that started getting me connections to teaching for elderly at a retirement home. Gradually that got me to a connection to be teaching all around Atlanta. So that drive-in was a beast.
But you think about that, and you think about ordering your steps, right?
Yeah.
Like you had to go through that process in order for you to be here today. So let's fast forward, right? You did that. Fast forward to 2021. So pandemic, right? There's all of the things that come out of that, right? You are reinvigorated with stresses and anxiety because you don't have no idea
what's going to happen.
Exactly what the world's come to. So how did you manage that? And then how did that bring you to the revelation that you want to be doing what you want to be doing now?
My anxiety was up again during that time. And then I had to remember, I'm like, okay, like, how am I going to get paid? I think the only thing I was concerned about was how I was going to get paid, because I worked for the government. I worked at the police department at the time. So I was like, how am I going to get paid? How am I going to pay like something as small as a phone bill? I was still living with my parents at the time, but I was like, paying small things like phone bills and stuff. I'm like, how in the world am I going to do that? But by the grace of God, they did pay us despite us being closed during the pandemic. So that was like, whew, okay. Then I think after a while, I think my creative mind started flowing. Like the more, I realized how much we were closed. I started resting more. I was like eating things that I wanted to eat, but it was more like, okay, I'm like feeding my body in a way that's a little bit more different. So I was connecting to other people that thought like me, whether it was online or in person, things like, we were all meeting online, but I think some people were in Atlanta, some people were in Asheville, some people were in Tennessee. So it really gave me the time to connect and create and learn things and really get my mind grounded. And I think 2020 was the year I was watching like a lot of documentaries on stuff, because I think God was like, you need to start expanding your mind, because he knew there were certain things. And yoga isn't bad. I think I was applying a lot of pressure on myself in the time I first started, because I saw all these other yoga teachers who had like thousands of followers and different things like that. So, once I was like, why am I not on this level or not doing yoga full time? He's like, just start watching some documentaries and really expand your mind on things. So that happened. And I think that's when he started expanding my creative mind. And when the creative aspect and my creative mind started being open, I was like, okay, everything's starting to make sense, and I know exactly what I want to do. 2021, that was still a year of a lot of stress for other people. But when I was teaching candlelight yoga, when I met you at the time, I'm like, I really like to enjoy like things that are more restorative, because during COVID, I was doing a lot of things that were restorative. I was still teaching like yoga flows and hatha flows and all of that. But in my own personal practice, it was like, I just want to lay out. And I didn't realize how powerful it was to lay out and just rest. And, because people think restorative yoga means lazy, boring. It wasn't that case for me. It was like, wow, this can be a real like saving grace. All in all, I think I started learning what rest really meant, because I was all into this feminine energy, goddess word, all these things. And I'm like, this is exhausting. This is exhausting. This is too much. A lot of other women who are into the feminism of yoga, they do the same things. We all do the same things. I'm like, I just need something different. So
let's talk about that though, because like you said, 2021 came to you sincerely needing rest, right? Not realizing that, okay. And I had been going that way because prior to 2019, I'm like, Lord, I just don't want to work anymore
Right.
because this is so overrated and all of the things, right?
Yeah.
So then you get the pandemic. Okay, that forces you to rest because you don't have, right, everything's closed.
Right.
But then coming back out of that, everybody wants to go back to normal when life should no longer be
Normal.
Right, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because life is no longer normal. Pandemic aside, like, we just got to stop being so busy. Talk to me a little bit about that rest, the importance of rest, the importance of slowing down, and maybe some tips, right? Because for me, it was literally just being still for 47 minutes in one posture, right? So that I can get in tune with that, changing. So talk to me a little bit about that.
So when I started knowing rest was important for me is when I realized when 2021, everybody's back open, we all had to rush and had to go. 2022 hit, I got another job, and then I realized I'm like, I think I taught like 4 or 5 days a week, if I'm mistaken. I can't even imagine myself doing that anymore. So I sat down with the owner. I said, look, I gotta have something back. Like, can I just teach like 2 days a week?
Yeah.
And I said, can we just go into something with yin yoga? Because I said, I don't want to flow. I don't want to move. I needed that break in that space. So when I do go back to teaching like flows and all of that, I know how to do it in a restful way versus just, okay, we just flowing and just moving and shaking and this is good and challenging, you know? So the thing that hit me once that happened was just like, okay, I started getting more understanding what rest really meant for me. And it's like, rest is something that is productive. And we talk about active rest all the time. And I say, you know, active rest is simply just, you know, doing something that you like painting, drawing, going on a hike. For some people, you know, shopping is their rest time. I'm like, if you want to go like up street to Walmart or TJ Maxx and say, I just need a break.
If you got
that's active rest. So that's active rest as well. So one of my biggest tips I learned was boundaries, and boundaries was the word for like the past 4 years, because I was just like, you know, you don't have to say yes to everything. And I learned when people are always on the go, you can either be extremely addicted to moving. And I've learned that because now I've seen people who are addicted to moving and just cannot stop. And it's like, okay, what is that? And psychologically in their mind, they feel, okay, if I don't get a hold of something or I don't do something, I'm not being productive and I'm not being valuable around the world. But what we have to learn is rest teaches us our value. So it taught me my value and it taught me my worth. And I was just like, if I want to do something, I ain't got to do it.
And it's so good that you say that, because that is so true. Like, I'm in this very intense process of rest, but that is what I'm learning. Like, nobody's opinion of me holds any, you know, any real, outside of God, right? Nothing that you say I need, right? Those values don't get to enter into me anymore, because that's just not where I am, you know what I'm saying? Because I don't need the same things I needed prior to. And so talk to me about yoga as trusting the process, and then, you know, maybe a little bread for today.
Your value is not determined by how much you can give. It's not determined by how much you can run around in circles and do things. It's not determined by you being a yes man or a people pleaser or somebody who's just trying to be like that inner child again, just accepting and loving other people. Rest is a way of production and it's a way of power. And when you say no to something and when you're able to say, you know what, I'm gonna just rest, I'm gonna meditate for 5 minutes, that's you reclaiming your power back. So I like to think of rest as a superpower. So anytime you need to put that cape on, get your pillow, get your blanket, get whatever you need and just rest, just chill out. And it doesn't always have to look yogic, like you're in a posture, or you're doing all these mantras. You don't have to do all of that. It's just, it's a way for you to just come as you are. So it's people who are underprivileged can do it, people who are middle class, upper class, whatever. Everybody needs this tool of power, because it's like, if you're not resting and you're not clearing your mind, you're not going to be a good person. You're not going to be the best version of yourself. You're not going to be that version of yourself that God has created for you to be. So, which
is so anti-capitalistic when you think about it, right? Because our American society says go, 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 go. So as you say, superpower, because it's so antithetical to everything we've been taught about what it means to be busy.
Right,
you know?
exactly.
So that's
Exactly.
good. That's good. So thank you so much for this conversation.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about what new things are in store for you, what new transitions, what new processes.
I am so excited. So I have closed my business. Originally, I had a yoga business for 6 years. It was called Sacred Shakti Yoga. You know, all this divine feminine energy. And that's powerful too. But I think I learned that rest is a superpower and rest is empowering. So coming in 2025, I will be rebranding. I've closed my website. It's now called Empowered Rest Yoga.
Okay.
So mainly my whole mission is to help women and men too, but women, female entrepreneurs and corporations kind of, you know, get everything together. Because a lot of times when you're in a corporation, your employees are stressed, the CEO is stressed, everybody is just
100%.
like going bonkers. So my whole point is to say, okay, let's teach all of these things and say, look, rest is productive and you can get things done by setting your boundaries. You can get things done by healing things within you. So you can come to your work or find a work-life balance. I think for me, a lot of times that's what I learned during COVID. Work-life balance is so important. Even when people, you just like, oh, I don't want to go to work. Sometimes there are days I don't want to go to work.
Right.
But what I learned is like, when I come to work, I want to come de-stressed.
Yes.
I set my boundaries. I'm like, look, this is not going to bother me or stress me out. So when you set those boundaries, and that's what Empowered Rest is about, when you set those boundaries, learn to find a healthy work-life balance, learn to meditate, learn to use, like now we're going to start getting into more aromatherapy, using like aromas and essential oils to kind of clear your mind and your spirit. It allows you to feel empowered and learn, okay, I got my cape. This is Empowered Rest is my superpower, like, you know, so I'm just going to be taking it everywhere. And pretty soon I'll be on Insight Timer. That's an app.
Oh, every single night I'm pointing to my husband back here because I always turn my thing on. He'd be like, you turn that down? No, it's got to be, gotta hear it.
Absolutely not, husband. But
I need my white noise.
But yes, I'm going to start joining Insight Timer just so everybody like around the world can actually hear this powerful tool. So
Yes. Okay,
That's
great.
it.
Yes. I'm so excited that you were here, Ebony. I
Thank
really
you
do
so
appreciate
much.
you. Like, seriously. She's helped to change my life in so many ways. And so I hope you guys get to interact with her on the interwebs. And if you're in Georgia, check her out because she's some of the places. And I'll drop all the social media information in the chat and in the description. But yes, that was your bread for today. I'm your host, Tonisha. Peace.